to deal with today. I started teaching kids 13 years ago. My final semester of seminary, I became involved with an organization that fought child trafficking. And even with my background, I was shocked at what I found out. And I say in my other seminars, at that point is when I began to believe in true evil. And I tell someone if they want to debate that with me, I can tell you in 3 to 5 minutes some of the things that I found out about that it's going to affect you the rest of your life. But there are some really horrible things out there. And there was one thing I found out that shook me up so much, because Kempo karate is the really hardcore, nasty stuff, eyes, throat, knees, take them out quickly sort of stuff. And I'd never taught kids before. And I got a hold of a friend of mine who's a federal agent and had been a street cop. And I was telling him, thinking he'd be like, oh yeah, and then he'd say whatever. Chris was in shock about it. And when I talked to him, this would have been early 2013, I'll never forget, he said, Tim, you got to do something. And I was like, I know. And I did what I always do, and I spent about 6 months hitting the books, and I created my own program. Well, I'd never paid much attention to kids' self-defense before, kids' karate, whatever you want to call it, because it just wasn't part of what I do. It wasn't the school I came up in, that I got all my rank in, didn't teach 16 or below. It was just kind of considered too nasty. I looked into it, and I was absolutely furious at what I found out. Stranger danger is stupid, just to be really clear. It is absolutely stupid, and we're going to replace it with something much better. But what I found was a bunch of fear-based nonsense, and I found a bunch of games and jumping around and doing random kicks, and then I found a bunch of unscrupulous instructors that had their hands out all the time so that these kids could get rank, and that this idea that a 10-year-old could have a black belt, which I'm not going to get too deep into that, but I just want you to know my motivation. I was looking at this, I was like, you're not only not making kids safe, you're giving them a false expectation of reality, and you know nothing about the reality of the violence in the street. So I spent that time and I came up with my program. So I discovered I'm really good with kids. To this day, it still kind of surprises me, but they respond very well to me. But one thing that I realized is no matter how good I was teaching my students, and just to be blunt, I'm excellent. I'm very, very good at what I do. You give me 45 minutes with any kid and they'll be safer for the rest of their childhood. No questions about it. But I was looking at no matter how good I am with the kids, I can never talk to them like the parents can. So I had an idea about 2015. What if I came up with a handful of things that I could then in seminars, and I was visualizing this, that I could then teach the parents, and then they could teach the kids at kitchen table conversations. And just as a side note, I think that's one of the problems with society today is we've gotten away from that. We've gotten away from those family kitchen table conversations and that I grew up with, that you grew up with. And so I came up with this idea that became the 7 golden rules that we're going to be talking about. So I designed this, and again, it's in your handout. So once you learn these things, you can then go over them with the kids, your kids, kids that you know, grandkids, nieces, nephews, and so every single kid, because I also had this vision. I've moved around quite a bit, but I'm staying here. And the places I went to, I used to visualize that it was like I had this rock that I would throw in the pond, and those ripples represent safety and security for my community. Well, I'm saying right here, it's going to be a boulder that we're throwing in here, and it gets started here today. So that every person that's in here, you teach these to kids, and that's going to spread out. And someday, Franklin County is going to be known nationally as a place you don't mess with the kids here, because they also know what to do. So